Dear Addy, the only disability in life is a bad attitude. Love, Dad. Dear Addy, masks are disposable. You're not. Wear a mask. You're worth it. Love, Dad. Dear Addy, Control, Alt, Delete. Control yourself, alter your thoughts, delete negativity. Love, Dad. In August of 2017, Dad Chris Yandle began writing notes each school morning for his daughter Addison and slipping them in her lunchbox or backpack. He knew she was going through a tough year in school and wanted to help. On the last day of junior high in May 2022, his 900th note was written, and he continues on. He says, I hope the words I share with my kids will make an impact on them as they grow up, and I hope they can help other parents too. Many of these small notes have eventually become a book and have drawn worldwide attention. Now, we need to build resilience in our children. Too often we're not arming them with skills to succeed in a world that's so obsessed with images of perfection and information about how to achieve it, rather than accepting our own individual, perfect imperfections and working with these to become whole, happy individuals with a true sense of self. As parents, we often parent to our own personality style, plus all of the other environmental influences that we've taken on board over time. And this is where it's important to know your child's personality and the influences that have shaped them. If we know our children well, we can tailor our reactions and behaviours to enable us to help, understand, and listen with both ears. Yes, both ears, when they express their thoughts, feelings, and fears. Everyone parents differently, and I fully respect that. But I also respect that I need to feel comfortable in my own decisions rather than feeling pressured by the advice of others. I'm happy to hear other people's thoughts, but ultimately it's my decision that I need to be happy with. And the same goes for you too. My son had finally got his license after many driving lessons, and I rejoiced. One less child to drive around. However, when it came to driving by himself, he felt too uncomfortable to do so. But when accompanied by another person, he felt very comfortable and at ease. Bummer. Was I never going to be alone in my car? I was ready to let go and play some of my own music and mellow out by myself. Now, many people gave me advice. Be strong. Make him catch buses. Make him walk if he's not going to drive. Now, I know who I am, and being true to myself, as I say, is the most important thing, and I actually really know my kid, as you would know yours. Now, this is not what he responds to. Gentle coercion is actually my friend. Someone once said there are no problems in life, just solutions. So I set about finding a solution for Jack and myself. Now, as an extrovert, I'm all about sharing my problems and asking others for help, and I'm not so sure that Jack really enjoys that. However, too bad this time. I happened to be in Sydney with an amazing coach, Ben Harvey, and I asked him what I could do about Jack's reluctance to drive alone. He said to me, why don't you ask him what he can do, rather than discuss what he can't do? Honestly, I'd actually never thought about this. When I got home, I asked Jack how far he felt he could drive alone. And I expected, possibly to the park or the end of the street. However, he came back with, I could drive to my old school. Really? I was actually shocked because the school is 20 minutes away. His uni was actually 5 minutes further on, but the school was his comfortable distance, so we worked out a plan. I would follow him for the first 3 weeks to the school, and he would leave his car, and I would take him on to uni. I would then pick him up after uni and take him to his car for him to drive back home. After all, I had taken him to school previously for the last goodness knows how many years, so what were a few more weeks? After 2 weeks, I asked him if it was okay to drive to uni by himself, just as a try, and I was quite prepared to wait longer. However, he was ready. He had actually overcome his fear of driving alone without pressure or stress, but with time and listening to his needs, and he's never looked back. I'm Kate Mason, and welcome to Parenting and Personalities. This is the podcast that connects you to the ones you care about the most. Today we're talking about how to reaffirm our children and different ways of doing so. How do we show our love and support and encourage our children to understand others? and to realise that the world's full of all kinds of people. And do you know what? They're not all going to love or even like us. And we're not actually going to love or like everyone else either. Now, perfection is a lie. Understanding yourself and others is one of the most important tools you can have. Seeing the world through the eyes of other people is one of the biggest gifts we can give ourselves and our kids. Now, I believe that even before diving into external factors, just dealing with different personalities, we're all on an unknown journey and often battling to work out who we are, let alone our kids. So do me a favour, let's not judge other people's parenting styles. If people ask for advice, give it. But if they just want an ear, listen. None of us are perfect parents. However, there are some amazing ideas and helpful tips out there in the world that work. Our guest, Chris Yandle, held the position of College Athletics Administrator and was an award-winning public relations professional at both the K-12 and college levels in the USA. In 2017, after spending more than a decade working in this field, he returned to his home state, Louisiana. In March 2021, he returned to higher education as the Assistant Commissioner for Public Affairs with the Louisiana Board of Regents. However, today we're going to actually be talking to the dad, Chris Yandle. His simple notes in his daughter's lunch bag showed her his love, helped build her resilience, and develop values and life skills along the way. So, hello Chris, and welcome to the show today.
Thanks for having me, Kate.
It's lovely to have you on. I'm really excited about that. Look, what we're going to do is you're back in your hometown where you were brought up as a child. So looking back in the old days I say, I'm older than you, so really old for me, but not so much for you. What was some of the things that you take from your parents bringing you up when you were a kid that were great things that you perhaps repeat today or you might wish to repeat today? And what were some of the things that perhaps you wouldn't do or wish to do as a parent in today?
Man, that's a loaded question, huh?
Sorry.
No, you're good. Because parenting is really, you're trying to figure out on your own and trying to do the right things for your kids while also simultaneously forgiving what your parents may have or may not have done. So growing up in South Louisiana for the majority of my life, large extended families. My mom's one of 10. My dad's one of 5. My mom's dad was a college professor and college dean for 30 years. So education was always first and foremost in our family. We always had large family gatherings. So there's always a sense of closeness. But I think the biggest thing for me when I was growing up was that's all I knew. So I wanted to see what else was out there in the world. So I really think that made me a better parent in that I was able to live in different areas and kind of have life on my own with my wife, Ashley, moving all across the country. And we were able to chart our own path. But there's still a lot of things that I look back on that my parents have taught me. They taught me hard work. They taught me not to make excuses. And that's really something I try to pass down to my kids.
That's fantastic. So you mentioned when you talk to, when I've listened to your other talks, that moving around, you did a lot as a child. Mm-hmm. And it's one of the things that you actually looked back and thought about when you came back and settled down, that you'd actually done to your own children, and you weren't so keen on that as a child yourself. Did you have did you actually move around a lot when you were young?
Yeah, so my dad was in the trucking industry here in the United States, but wasn't a truck driver. He was more of an executive, and we just moved around, bounced around between Louisiana, Alabama, Tennessee, and Maryland. And this is, I'm 40 years old, and this is the 6th different time I've lived in Louisiana. And this,
wow,
as crazy as it sounds, Kate, I was born in Louisiana, but I've only lived here for the last 6 years, and that's the longest I've ever lived here in one place ever in my life.
Wow.
And I don't think I realized that I was moving around a lot as an adult with kids until around 2015 in Atlanta, Georgia, after moving from Miami. And that's when I realized, whoa, we got to slow down here, because I didn't want to repeat that pattern, because like I mentioned a little earlier, parenting is charting your own course while forgiving the past. And I didn't want to repeat that, because I didn't want my kids to have some of the, I don't want to say issues I had as a kid, but I didn't really have a place to call home for the longest time, because I've lived in 10 different states in 40 years. So 6 years ago, it was the realization that, hey, we need to, maybe it is where we were always supposed to be. Maybe Louisiana was where we should have been all along.
And is that a good decision for you? Are you feeling good about that?
Absolutely. I loved living in Texas, loved living in Miami, loved living in Atlanta. We still have friends in all those places. But ultimately, at the end of the day, this is where we belong. I was able to finish my Ph.D. here. Other doors have opened for me professionally in my current day job, and teaching on the side here at LSU in Baton Rouge, and writing a book. I don't think, had we not come back 6 years ago, these opportunities wouldn't have existed.
No. You're talking to a woman who's actually been in the same place for the last 60 years. And I think it would have been a wonderful, everything's good and bad about different situations. I didn't get a chance to change and move around and have to adapt to new different situations. So, there's the good and the bad of everything. And as we know, look, today the parents' world's just fraught with so many new experiences. Like, our kids have got this immediate gratification. They don't just know about where they are. They're busy looking at everyone else's lives on Instagram and Snapchat and all of those things. So it really makes their life even that much more difficult than our lives were. It was so much simpler back in our day. So when, you saw your daughter was showing the signs of stress, at school, and what kind of things did you notice about her that you felt, oh my goodness, she's showing signs of stress that you perhaps felt yourself or could relate to?
That's a good question. I think, she and I are alike in a way that we're both introverts. Although I tend to be sometimes an extroverted introvert, just because of the field I work in public relations and public affairs. But just, it wasn't anything she really said or did. I can just tell by her demeanor and her body language. I've told both of my kids many times, your body language is going to tell you and tell other people a lot more than any words you could say. And just noticing, it just looked like the whole world was weighing on her shoulders. And, it took years for her to admit that that's what it was. But, sometimes parents, they know, because, not only had I experienced it, Ashley had experienced it too around the same age. So I think there was an intuitiveness from the both of us where we realized there's something here, and we need to figure out how we can fix it.
It's really hard as a parent, isn't it? Because knowing how to fix something like that is just it's scary. So you just wrote a note. So what was your intent when you wrote that first note? Did you, obviously it wasn't your intention to be where it is today, and I want you to be able to tell the people that are listening where you are today, which is amazing. But what was your intent initially writing that for her?
My intent was really just to say, hey, I'm here. I honestly didn't think it was going to last more than a couple of weeks, whether it was I was going to forget or it was because she told me to stop. It was really just a chance moment in time where I'm like, you know what, maybe I should write her a little message. And honestly, Kate, I didn't think anything of it. And I've said that in multiple conversations, and I really mean it. 5 years ago, I didn't think anything of it. It's 32 words that I wrote that essentially has changed my life and has obviously strengthened my relationships, not only with my wife, but with my kids as well. And it was just kind of a dad's way of supporting his daughter. Because ultimately, we're all trying to fit in this world. And when she was starting fourth grade, that's a tumultuous time for a young girl, especially where we were living was middle school. I'm not familiar with the Australian school system, but fourth to eighth grade, that's a pretty transformative time for young boys and girls. So, and of course in America, being a woman is hard enough as it is. So it was just my way of telling her I was here. And that's what every note I wrote after that. And really, as we talk, I've written over 920 to Addison, and I've written about 230 to Jackson. Some of them are repeats, I will say that. But they all go back. I think they all have that central message in the first one, which said that we can all make a difference in the world and making someone's day, whether we feel isolated or not. And it was hard for me to have friends as a kid. It was hard for my wife, Ashley, to make friends at times as a kid. And, and that was without the internet.
Yes.
I want to preface that. Mm-hmm. When Ash and I were growing up, that was without the internet. And now with iPhones and smartphones and TikTok and Snapchat and Twitter and Instagram, you have so much more to navigate. And to navigate that as a preteen and now a teenager, it's hard. It really is difficult, but I can definitely see the growth in both of my kids in the last 5 years.
Is your business in endless chaos? Are you constantly in a state of self-criticism and unhappiness? Feeling out of control? Well, take back your life. This is something I can help you with. Let me teach you the tools of self-understanding and self-love. You won't look back. Take the first step and email me for a chat at thepersonalitycoach.com.au. And as a teenager, how old is she now?
Addison is 14 and Jackson is 11.
Right. So as those years evolve and move forward, like you say, sometimes the notes might be welcome and might not be, but it is still knowing you're loved too. Like I've got an introverted son. I'm an extrovert. Love talking to people and sharing all my feelings with the world, and a note wouldn't have been my thing really, and I probably would have got bored within seconds of minutes of writing it. I do remember sending something with my daughter like, "Hi gorgeous, have a lovely day, mummy loves you," but there was nothing like your notes in that sense, because I talk my feelings, whereas introverts don't, and well, not always. Like
Right.
you say, you can extrovert because it's an extroverted world, and you have to,
Right.
To make your place here. But for my son, it's the same thing. It's notes, it's messages. It's also because I've done love languages as well. He really loves hugs. And he's 29. So, these are the messages that I keep flowing between my kids and myself, is knowing introversion, extroversion, knowing what keeps them happy. And even when he's really flat and depressed or sad, I'll just look at him and I say, "What do you need now?" And he'll say to me, "Look, I really need a hug right now." And if you've got simple things like your note making and things like that you can do for the kids, because sometimes talking doesn't do it, and
No.
and nor does nagging.
And in a technologically saturated world, you have to meet your kids where they are.
Yes.
And so trying to meet my two kids where they are, and then trying to meet the 48 college students that I teach twice a week where they are, it's hard. It's challenging.
It is.
And there are times I do nag. There are times I do go overboard, and I just need to, step back. And she'll tell me when I need to back off, and she always comes back, and she'll ask for help, or we try not to offer too much advice. we want her to figure things out, but we step in when we absolutely have to.
Yeah, because one of my biggest things I say this to my children, do you want my advice or do you just want me to listen right now?
Yep.
And sometimes they say they want my advice, and I don't know that they like it when I give it. But they said that was okay, because I think as parents, that's a lot of what we do. We're sitting there giving advice, and for them it's like blah, blah, blah in their ear, because really, in reality, we know if someone gives us advice and we're not interested, we don't take it on board.
Right.
So it is, and the wonderful thing about the written words, and in particular your notes, in the sense that your notes are kind of unique, and you teach and you give information, and they're reminders that the world isn't perfect and that we have to learn to live in it and accept others. And it really, the world's a good world. But for our children today, like you're talking about, there's not enough social interaction face to face and understanding each other's feelings. And my daughter used to fight with her boyfriend via text. And I would say to her, you've got to be kidding, I've just had an argument, and she'd come back in, and I say to my husband, how are these kids going to have relationships where someone's actually yelling at them and, and they're going to come away going, oh, like I've been abused, because they're not going to be used to the tonality and the body language of all of that.
Yep.
So it is a world where you have to, I don't know, as parents, we kind of have to make sure that they are keeping up with normal body language and understanding people's feelings verbally as well, and tonality and all that type of thing, and not just texting and doing things like that. But she has grown up and she has had arguments, so I'm all cool. That's all good. That's all kind of worked out. So do you think, like, your workplace training is obviously in PR and putting stuff together, that's written and verbally skilled. Do you reckon that what's made your notes so special, that talent that you have for that? Because these notes, can you just tell us what these notes have actually done for you? Not done for you, what they've done for the world.
Yeah, well, first, I don't think I've ever thought about my PR skills as playing a role. Dating back to when Addison, when I was her age in 6th and 7th grade, I was told by teachers that I had a knack for writing, because again, as an introvert, that's how you share ideas and stories. I was shy to raise my hand and talk in class, so I naturally took to writing. So when I discovered communications and public relations in college as a major, I really enjoyed it. I guess I had like a knack for it, and I liked the processes involved. But I never thought that it played a role in anything I've written. So kudos to you, Kate, for asking to making that connection, because that's never been made. That's probably a really good point. There could be something there. The times I want to give up and stop writing, because I'll be perfectly honest, Addison probably does not read all of them, and that's okay. A lot of the times I view it as my own personal journaling session, because I probably need that reminder just as much as they do, and I've needed that reminder for the last 1,200 or so days. But the feedback and the messages that I get from just random people all over the world, Korea and Japan last year, people from Australia, Europe, and even here in the States, just what simple words can do. It makes me feel like I have a purpose. And, full disclosure I suffer from anxiety and depression, and I've always battled and sought what my purpose was. And I feel like not only is this connection that I'm trying to have with my kids and leaving them what I like to call a playbook for the day I'm gone, and they can follow these words and hand them down to their own kids, but the fact that they can help make somebody's day, it's a good feeling. It makes me realize that, like you said earlier, there is goodness in the world, and I'm not just shouting into a vacuum or handing a note to an angsty teenager that isn't interested. So it's that's definitely been the highlight of this entire journey.
Absolutely. And as you've said before too, writing those notes has actually helped you stay in touch with all of that stuff as well. And honestly, reading your notes, I get goosebumps quite often. I've read them all out to my kids going, right, listen to this one. And look, you know what kids are like? Like mine aren't children anymore. They're 27 and 29. They're still my kids, but they actually sat and listened and went, oh, yeah, that's true. So the impact on them, on people, is actually incredible, and all kudos for you for doing something that you didn't think was ever going to change anybody's world. This is not what you intended, was it?
Mm-mm.
No,
I didn't. This was never meant to be a book. It was just a suggestion from her fourth grade teacher and principal. I didn't envision many people outside of my wife and a few people on Instagram reading it. I didn't think it was going to make much of a difference, but the sole purpose was for Addison. And if it made her feel better, or if it helped ease that transition, then to me, that's all that mattered.
I agree. I understand. Now, look, just a quick question. Do you ever write notes to your wife?
I have sometimes. Usually for our anniversary, I'll write a letter.
Yeah.
Because that's all she wants. I'm very lucky in that regard. I'm lucky, period, because she's put up with my dream chasing and supported me no matter what, and especially when I didn't support myself. So I always try to make sure that I write her something at least once a year, whether it's anniversary, birthday, Christmas, one of those. I always try to make sure that there's something written.
Yeah. No, that's wonderful. And let's face it, your marriage is your most important thing. If that's taken care of, really the rest of it's gold.
I made it. We made it 15 years. I never thought I'd ever be married 15 years. So we've already won the prize.
Well done. I'm on 35, so I'll let you know how it goes.
I'll
let you know how it goes after that.
My parents will be married 50 years next year, so wow. I don't know how they've done it.
Hang in there.
I really don't. Yeah.
Hang in there. It's all good. It is all good. You just keep working at it like you are. Now, listen, is there any chance that you could just tell us, do you have a couple of notes that might be your favorite, or that you could just give us examples of?
Favorite.
Oh, all right. A couple you can remember.
Yeah, well, you are in luck because I have my phone here. I keep a photo compilation of them. So let me read some from this school year. Let's see. You can tell I'm a PR person because I keep meticulous records and detail of everything I do. Let's see.
Which is wonderful. And I'm sure it's part of your personality as well.
I am somewhat type A. I will not lie. Let's see. One, for instance, this is from August 12th of this year. Addison, bees don't waste their time explaining to flies why honey is better than blank. Love, Dad. I'm sure your listeners can fill in the blank there. Let's see. I wrote some of these to Jackson. I think were pretty funny. I try to make some funny so they're not all serious. Let's see. Oh, I wrote this one on August 15th to Addison. Be kind to everyone. They may have a hot brother. Because we are in the high school days where all the boys are cute distractions. So we want to make sure we're nice to everybody because they may have a cute or hot brother. We want to keep our options open. Let's see. What else? To Jackson on August 16th, in the game of life, it's better to be behind others than to be a behind or butt to others. A lot of his are sports related. He plays baseball. That's been our connection because my previous career was in college sports here in the States. And that's always been our connection. So Addison and I have our connection, and Jack and I connect through sports. So I try to be to relate on that level and try to relate it on a fifth grade understanding. Because trying to relate to a fifth grader and trying to relate to a high school freshman is difficult. Another one from August 19th to Addison, create good karma. No matter, I think the last 6 years of anything has proven that, good things do come back to you like a boomerang eventually. It was a long road for me to hoe, and I didn't think I was ever going to make it out. But the time and the effort and the energy I put in, good things have finally started to come our way. Let's see, what else? Let me see what I have from this week. She actually just walked into the kitchen and was hiding her face and running away because she hates whenever I'm doing this.
Oh, no, I can imagine.
So on August 30th, I told Addison, I accept that you may think that I'm annoying, but I'll never stop being your dad. And I know dads can be annoying. I remember when I was 14 and 15, I thought my parents were annoying. So I can only imagine what it's like now that there's more devices and distractions, 25 years later, how more annoying dad can be, especially if he also happens to be your tutor in math or help you with homework every night, which is our nightly routine here. And then one of my other favorites to Jackson was August 31st. Make mistakes, just don't make them permanent. I've probably been more transparent with my kids than I should be. After losing a job 6 years ago, wanting to die, wanting to end my life, going through hell and back. But I want my kids to understand that mistakes happen. We all make mistakes. We're all human. But if you make that mistake over and over again, it becomes a habit and it becomes a character trait. But if you make the mistake and you learn from it, that's how you get better. You just can't make those mistakes and setbacks permanent.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. That, if you want, you can create a habit out of something, but if you change your reaction to something, that's the most important thing, because it's how you react to that situation. And if you can change that reaction, then, like you say, it really changes your whole world. And the fact is, we all make mistakes as parents.
I jokingly say that I fully expect that both of my kids will be in therapy at some point in their life.
Oh, I was about to say the same thing.
Probably because of me. But I mean, and I go to therapy too as an adult. We all make mistakes. Nobody, no matter how many best-selling parenting books there are in the world, none of us know what the hell we're doing.
No,
we're all learning from each other and trying to figure it out, because what works for your kids may not work for my kids, and vice versa. We're just all trying to make it out of here alive. I mean, honestly, we're just trying to figure it out.
Absolutely. And I do say the same. I said to them, listen, I've done the best job I can do. Okay. And I know I've messed up. And I say the same to you. You can tell your psychologist about it if you need to later on in life, because I've done my very best. But it is because, I talk about personalities and understanding your kids. And I've found that knowledge around personalities and like the Myers-Briggs type indicator, which you probably would have come across, has been huge for me to understand my children. So I think as a parent, you've got to read everything, look at things, and what suits you and fits you is what you take on board. You discard the rest of it, because what's not working for you isn't going to work. I think that we all move along and find what is good and bad for us to use in our parenting and what really works. So
yeah, and also to piggyback off of that is, parenting now seems to be a lot of being outraged by things. If things don't fit what you believe or fit your narrative, I don't have time to be outraged by stuff. If it doesn't, like Ashley and I tell the kids, if it doesn't affect our paychecks, where we live, or affect the four of us personally, I don't give a damn.
No.
I honestly don't. We just don't have the bandwidth to handle that, just with work and school, extracurriculars, and having a life and trying to enjoy life. I think parenting recently has become a lot of people just being pissed off just to be pissed off.
I agree. And like you say, you know, your family are the most important thing. They're what make you tick. And you've got to live for what's right for all of you. So it's absolutely true. And yeah, there's so much stuff written out there, and, you know, it's all, I will never get started on the bandwagon, but, you know, our kids a lot of the time, having older children, is realising that, you know, I went through the really soft generation of everybody wins a prize, and the effect that has. I mean, I think my kids have got a bit of guts around them, and they are determined individuals, but there's been a lot of mistakes made through generations of parenting. So we just have to go with what's right for us at that time and go with it. And you know what?
Absolutely.
I've got a couple of good kids, and I bet you've got a couple of great kids too. No, you can say it in front of your daughter.
They're not bad. They stay out of trouble for sure.
That's exactly what you want. Chris, thank you for joining me today. As a fellow parent, I'm so pleased to meet the person that has had such an impact on the world without actually realising it, because your notes just aren't for kids. They're actually for us all. And honestly, they are inspiring. And I wish you much joy and happiness on your parenting journey forward.
Thank you, Kate. I appreciate it. And it's been fun talking to somebody from the land down under.
Yeah, thanks.
You're my first Aussie to talk to, so this has been fun.
I'm excited. You're my first American, so thanks, Chris.
Thank you.
So let us not be judgmental of others' parenting styles. So remember, if someone asks for advice, you can give it. But remember, if they really want you to listen, please listen, and don't tell them what to do. None of us are perfect, but we can learn from others. Now, Chris's website is bychrisyandle.com, and his details are in the show notes. Please take the time to look at Chris's notes to his daughter. I think you're going to find them inspirational, not just for your kids, but for you as well. Remember, there are many amazing ideas and helpful tips out there in our world that work. I'm Kate Mason. Thank you for listening to Parenting and Personalities. If you've enjoyed this episode, we'd love it if you leave a rating and a review. That would help others learn about the podcast. If you're interested in discovering more about you and your family's personality types, you'll find my newly launched book, Who Is This Monster or Treasure in My House, on Booktopia or Amazon. If you have an episode idea, please send a note to thepersonalitycoach@gmail.com. Many thanks to our producers at Stories and Strategies, and I'll see you next time.